What is going on, everybody? Brutus on Baseball back with you again for another live stream. Really appreciate anybody that joins live. I'm not sure what to expect in terms of live. Trying to make these a little bit more consistent about when I do them, but working around kids' schedules, softball season coming up for my daughter, it's going to be hit and miss. So it'd be great to hear from people if there's certain times or days that make a lot of sense over other ones. But I'm going to try to become a little bit more consistent with how I do these. The big reason that I'm doing the live stream today is I've been working hard kind of behind the scenes to get some video content together to be able to record and put those out over the next couple weeks, the next month, essentially, before the season starts. So we're getting closer. I've been working really hard at reading books, doing a lot of research. The big one that I'm excited about recording, I should be able to record this right after we're done with the live stream. I'm going to get up there and start recording the next video, which is going to be the history of baseball in Japan. So, how did it start? How did it grow? Just in time for the WBC. This is something that I've been interested in for a while. So, I decided to take a couple books out to do a lot of research on that, and just try to come up with the own story in my head of how this all came to be and how it's evolved over time. And I'm going to record that and share that with you. Hopefully by this Friday, if I can get it all recorded, edited, all the graphics and all that stuff. So I'm excited to do that one, and then I'm going to follow that up with a couple more things to come in the coming weeks. So, Caleb, I see you've joined me on the live stream. Appreciate it. Thanks for the message. Good to see you on here. Feel free if you do jump on here. Anybody that does, put a message in there. Just let me know that you're here. James, I see you there too. There you go. What's up to you? So there you go. That's my plans for upcoming videos. A couple of WBC related things, and for that reason, I'm on here today doing a live stream again. So what I wanted to talk about, the couple of live streams that I've done so far have been baseball oriented in a general, Hall of Fame results. I talk about free agency, the upcoming, labor strike potential, I guess, that's coming up. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about cards. So there was a huge buzz around a new video that came out this last week. TPott put one out all about grading services. And he essentially submitted the same cards. It was two cards. One was a Pokemon, the other one was a Griffey Upper Deck rookie. He resubmitted that one over and over again to the various grading companies to see what the results were. Of course, it kind of blew up into this big thing. I've got, share my screen a little bit of what I was going to show everybody. This shocking results. Of course, they put out some videos. Here's one of Jeff Wilson not too long after put out this video. Can grading be trusted anymore? Of course, they're going to make this as sensational as they can, right? To make it look as crazy the results. And that's what a lot of the videos that I saw shared was their crazy results. I'm going to show you the TPott's shocking results one. You can see here on the screen. This is the results. I can't remember exactly what the order went through here, but I just wanted to talk about it, give my own perspective on this. And I see there's a couple comments in there. Tag is terrible. PSA 2. There's a lot of opinions out there. PSA, in my opinion, in my experience with them, they're the most inconsistent. So sometimes they'll return something that's a crazy number, 6, 7, and then the next card or one that looks exactly the same gets a 9 or a 10. So totally agree with you there. But what I wanted to talk about really was these results. I know that there's two different stories here. One is the fact that a couple of the grading companies wouldn't grade the cards. So, I think we had Tag had an oversized SGC at some point, had an authentic trimmed, and then he sent it back into SGC and it gave it a 9. So that's one story. Will the grading company grade the cards? And that is something that is wildly inconsistent. You shouldn't have two different answers from the single grading company, especially SGC. They'll grade at one time, but say it's trimmed the other time. That's pretty crazy. And that to me is the part of the result that is crazy. But outside of that, let's just look at these results. I know that it started, I think this top one in the corner, BGS 9.5, and that is an older grade. It was submitted probably a decade or more ago, and it got a gem mint. But if we're being honest here, BGS, it's 395s and a 9. They call it Gem Mint, they still do, but that's really a Mint Plus card. In the BGS grading scale, they don't have that Mint Plus, the step between a Mint 9 and a Gem Mint 9.5. But we all know, or we should know by now, that if you have subgrades on those BGS cards, they have 395s and a 9. That still gets you a Gem Mint, but it's really not at the level of a Gem Mint. So to me, that's a Mint Plus card. And it was graded 10 plus years ago. Who knows how those grading standards have changed? And no matter how much the grading companies say that the grading standards haven't changed, they have. They most definitely have. They've gotten a lot more strict over time. But it starts out as a Gem Mint 9.5. He cracks that open. He sends it into these various companies, and this was over the course of 2 different videos. So I think the first one was, he sent it to CGC. He got a 9. I think he sent it to SGC and it got the trimmed, and he sent it to somebody else. I can't remember the order of events, but essentially, let's go through it all, the grades that he got, not talking about the trimmed versus oversized and all that kind of stuff. But essentially, you have a 9.5 from BGS, which is a Mint Plus. You've got a CGC 9. You've got an SGC 9 eventually. You've got, I think this was Arena Club 8.5. When you look at those grades, those are actually incredibly consistent. You're hovering between anything from a 8.5 to a 9, 9.5 Gem Mint Plus, really. That's not a lot of inconsistency between the grades that were actually assigned to this card. The only one that gave it a grade that was odd, that was weird, was the PSA 6. We don't know why it got the PSA 6. PSA doesn't give you any grader's notes for this kind of information. Who knows? PSA is notorious for that kind of stuff. I don't know if they see one grader sees one thing and he just kind of points it out, but I'm constantly getting cards that I think are great cards. I get 9s and 10s on everything that I submit. Out of a 25 card package, but one card will come back as a 6 or a 7 just randomly, and it looks perfect. So PSA has this history of doing that. He sent it back into PSA, and I think it got an 8 the second time around. So, my opinion on this one is that those grading companies were actually somewhat consistent, giving it between an 8 and a 9, with only higher grade than a 9 being that original Mint Plus grade from BGS. So to me, that's not really that crazy of an outcome here. The other thing that he didn't talk about, I've seen people commenting about. James put a comment: "I've graded a bunch. The grader literally doesn't know much." It depends. We don't know who's grading these cards, how much training they've had. I know that they go through training before they're put out on their own, at least a couple months to get familiar. But they may not know much about the cards you're sending them. So the interesting thing with this one is there wasn't a lot of inconsistency really between the lowest grade of an 8 and the highest grade of a 9 Mint Plus. I'll give that to the BGS card. The other thing that I was about to start with that hasn't been talked about a lot, I know some people have pointed it out, is every time that he opens that card up again, he breaks the slab, he's got to get in there, pry it apart. The chances of damaging your card go up every single time that you do it. There's a reason why when you submit a card to crossover with a grading company and they do it for you, there's still a disclaimer saying, there's a chance that when we open up your card, there's something's going to happen and we can't control that. So you're taking the liability for this. That they're professionals. They crack these things on a daily basis. So when TPott was out there, and I've got nothing against TPott, great video. I love the angle that he took on this, the fact that he followed through and did it. I think it was amazing to get the conversation started. But every time he's breaking that slab open, you don't know what he's doing to the edges, the corners, the surface, maybe just kind of ruining that card a little bit more one step at a time. So it's not that surprising to me that over cracking it 6, 7, 8 times, those number grades might be going down just a little bit. Maybe not every time, but it's going to happen sooner or later. So, the results to me aren't as crazy as they wanted to make it seem. Of course, they want clicks, right? They want people to watch their videos. I get it. You want to provide comment that is sensational in some way. And so that's what they did. But I don't really buy their message here that the grading was so inconsistent, and Jeff Wilson's comment about, can grading be trusted anymore? I think the problem is that we've come to see grading as something that it's not. When you're sending a card in to be graded, you're asking another person to provide an opinion on the condition of your card. It's not the be all end all of everybody's opinion on that card, but you're sending your card in to get that graded opinion. That's what it is. Every company that you send it into is going to be somebody else looking at it, somebody else's grading standards that they have written out on a piece of paper, somebody else's grading scale. The scales don't even match from company to company. So whereas BGS has the 9.5 gem mint and still does, they don't have the mint plus, but maybe that would happen differently in some other company. Um, each grading company has slightly different scales for what they allow in terms of centering, and every single company goes into it slightly different, and there's still people looking at these cards. They're graders. I know that some technology is getting involved a little bit at a time, but really to this day it's still not primarily a technology grading experience. It's still a people grading experience, and there's gonna be variety. So the fact that you break the card and you submit and you get something that's one number grade different or a half grade different, to me is not a surprise. That's what we should expect, I think. If you submit a card and it's like 2 or 3 grades off, that's when something's off. Something's different here. But the fact that he had so much consistency in a lot of those grades, to me, it tells me that it's actually doing what it's supposed to be doing. And it's our expectation that the grading should be perfect across the board, number grade the same every single grading company, especially if we're cracking it and resending it. That means our opinions are off. Our expectations of what grading is off. And grading has become so ingrained in the card collecting industry. There's a ton of backlash right now. Lots of people saying, I'm not going to send any more cards in to get graded. It's a scam. I'm just going to deal with raw cards. And by all means, if that is you, go for it. Like if that's what you enjoy, then go for it. There's a lot of people that enjoy the grading experience for a different reason. It's what they collect. They like participating in the set registry, the competition piece. They like having all their cards lined up perfectly in the same holders. They like their cards to be protected. Whatever the reason is, they're going to keep grading. But I think where we are really falling into, um, getting lost a little bit is the fact that we think that we're sending it and expecting a grade that is going to be perfect. It's going to be accurate every single time, and it's just not going to be the case. So the sooner that we can get kind of over that and know that we're sending our card in to have an opinion by a third party, and if we choose to send it to another company, it's another opinion by a third party, and that is what grading is and always has been, then we're going to start understanding and not seeing grading as a scam. I see that a lot. Grading is not a scam. A scam is something where you send your money in and you're not getting the service that you've requested. You are getting the service you requested. You may just not get the same opinion that you had when you sent the card in. And it doesn't mean that you have to grade anything. You don't. Enjoy collecting raw cards and put them in binders and put them in top loaders and one touches. And if that's your thing, then that's how you collect. That's all good with me. So that's what I wanted to share a little bit today. I see, James has been putting a lot of comments. Sorry, James, I'm trying to kind of go with all my thoughts here, but I'll catch up a little bit. BGS sometimes categorizes it wrong for me. Yes, absolutely. Sometimes during their research project process, especially BGS, when they weren't doing a great job of really following up with their grading and marketing to collectors, they were making a lot of mistakes. So you have to send it in to get reholdered. You're wasting plastic, of course. Needs to understand the environmental risk with resending things, packaging, all that stuff. Yeah, I totally agree with you. There's a lot of people out there cracking cards, resubmitting over and over and over again. And this leads me to, another pet peeve of mine. I don't know if it's a pet peeve. It's a concern that I have. We talk a lot about the market and how important population report is and how hard it is to get certain grades and certain cards. and that drives a lot of the prices. But with so many cards being cracked out and resubmitted, I don't think we have any clue what the population report on some of these cards even is, especially the more rare ones, the ones that are harder to get in Gem Mint 10. You're going to get a 9 from one company, you're going to send it into another company, hope for the 9.5 Mint Plus or a Gem Mint from BGS 9.5. And you keep on sending things in, and most people, if they crack it beforehand, they're not keeping track. They're not sending their flips in. So I think that's really going to be interesting. And my plan is to make a video on this at some point in the near future about population reports and how incredibly inaccurate I'm sure that they are, and how important that's going to be in the long run. I really hope that, PSA, BGS, and SGC being under the same umbrella company, if it does one thing for us, I'm hoping it's to consolidate those population reports in the future, at least. Nothing we can do for cards that have been cracked out in the past. But when there's crossovers or things like that, they talk to each other. I know that when other companies get crossovers, they don't necessarily inform any of the other companies that they've cracked their slabs. So that's at least one piece of it if there's crossovers. But if you've already cracked your card and sent it into another company, there's no way to track that. And that's why population reports are really important. Gemrate.com, I love using gemrate.com, but you have to take all of it with a grain of salt. And I can't wait for the day when the population report shows more cards graded than are actually available. So a rare colored parallel that's numbered out of 10 and there's 12 graded copies by PSA. That's gonna start happening at some point in the future. It's gonna happen. So if it hasn't already, if you know of a case, let me know in the comments. But all the cracking and resubmitting, hoping for better grades, challenging these things, I think it's really ruined the population reports, or if it hasn't ruined it, it's going to eventually. So some of my 2 cents. James, catch up with you. Pop reports and 8s and 9s are always altered now. Yeah, I think that you get an 8, you crack it, you resubmit it. There's really no knowing what those population really are. So it's a best guess at this point. Ray from Philly, how you doing, Ray? Thanks for joining me on my live stream. I put it out here before. This is something new for me. I'm trying to be a bit more consistent with it. I love doing the live stream. It's something that I hadn't done for a long time. I just was making videos and going through a lot of the creation process, and I just jumped on here a couple weeks ago and tried it, and it actually, it was super easy. So I really enjoyed doing it that way. But yeah, so that's what I really wanted to talk about today. Come in here and give my 2 cents about this grading controversy, and can grading be trusted anymore. I just think it's overblown compared to the results that we actually saw here. And it would have been a lot more interesting if he got a 6 and an 8 and a 10 and a 9 and an 8. But really he got everything between 8 and 9, and the only questionable piece was the trimmed versus oversized, and that's something that just should have a lot more consistency, especially when submitting between the same company like SGC he did. So that's mostly what I wanted to talk about today. The other thing that I'll just touch on briefly, I'll share one more thing. This 75 iconic Topps cards. I found this one interesting. I'm going to talk about this at some point in the future. I might make my own video. There were some really great cards that were pointed out here. Obviously the number one, the Mickey Mantle 52 Topps. Not far after that, the Willie Mays, Jackie Robinson was in there. Lots of 52 Topps, and we all know that those are super important to Topps. But as you go down through the list, I found some quite surprising, and I also saw some that weren't in here that I was pretty surprised didn't make the list. So this is something that I'm going to dig into a little bit more, probably make a video at some point in the coming weeks, if not, a month or two, and really talk about my own, not the whole 75, because they got most of it right, of course, but my own list of which ones I wouldn't have included and which ones that I think were missed, that I think are great cards and overlooked. So I'm going to do that too. So that's it. James, Ray, thanks for joining me. James, thanks for all the conversation and adding in. Caleb, thanks for joining me at the beginning as well. keep looking for me on here. I will always post them ahead of time as much as I can to let you know I'll be on here. And like I said, look forward to the next week, next couple weeks, some WBC related material, including I'm hoping for this Friday, I'll be sending out a history of Japanese baseball. The full story from the moment it was introduced all the way until the present day. So that's something that I'm really excited to put out there, and I've put a lot of effort into learning about it. So I'm going to be sharing that with you, and I look forward to it. Until next time, keep talking baseball, and we'll see you around.